Good day, folks. So the last video I made on the channel, if you've been following along, was how I realized I had mixed up the maximum loss projection, stating that I thought and assumed that the same way the target was $20,000, I assumed the maximum loss was $20,000, and I hadn't checked my dashboard until that day that I did. So at the moment, actually at the end of that video, I specifically said that I'll have to reevaluate and recalculate and figure out how to move forward from here. And with that in mind, I did the maths and I essentially gave myself a maximum permissible loss of $500. I know that's not the actual amount, but I know there's commissions involved and I know there's possible swaps that might be calculated into that. So I told myself 500 is a good number, never to pass 500, otherwise I'll fail the challenge. So essentially I'm no longer working with this number, I'm now working with a maximum $500 challenge. So my goal now is to bring $500, not just all the way back up to 11,000, but also 20,000 on top of that. So basically I would have to grow $500 to $31,000 to pass this challenge. I know it basically drew me down by a lot, but I have no choice and I'll have to reevaluate everything and persevere through this journey. Alright, let's start off with the dollar index. I'm on the weekly chart of the Dixie, of course, dollar index. Reviewing, I know the price, the chart is a bit messy right now, but I'll wipe it after this review for the week ahead and the weeks to come. So anyway, in the past couple months, well, weeks technically, I was looking at this fair value gap on a weekly perspective along with the order block. I was actually wanting to see price trade into it before we could see higher prices, but we didn't see that and it was fine. That essentially meant that we basically swept these lows as some sort of turtle soup, or Judas swing in this case. Actually it's not a turtle soup since it properly went lower then started pushing higher. So last week we had this candlestick here printed, and I specifically mentioned that I would have preferred the closing of this candle to be above this candle for me to say that we are now officially bullish. Of course we didn't get that, and trading into the new week, I wanted to see price come back into this consequent encroachment of the CB of a lower time frame and the volume imbalances from the daily chart. I wanted to see price come into that so we can use that as support for higher prices. Nevertheless, we did get some good price action, some decent price action in the week, and we got to see price going higher. But this is just a weekly overview. What am I looking for on the weekly overview, like going ahead? I would like to see us trade above this area, essentially the opening of this bearish candlestick and the closing of this bullish one. I would like to see us trade above it, and we don't have to close above it, but I would like to see us trade above it for me to really confirm the bullish sentiment or bias that I might have. I would also like to see if we could create the low of week on a Tuesday or Wednesday at the opening of this order block. I know my chart is going to be extremely messy, but I'm just going to leave it there. I would like to see if we can retrace back into this. We don't have to, of course, because this would be a deep retracement if we did that. But if we did trade back into this on a Tuesday or Wednesday, I would ideally want to take prices to this buy side liquidity and of course this one. Again, I'm going to erase all the illustrations on my chart because it's just getting too much for me, but so far this is what I'm looking for for the week ahead. Going down on the daily chart, we can see how we traded. I forgot what event it was here, but I believe it was CPI that traded lower. I really wanted to see if we could tap this CB on a weekly perspective, but of course the consequent encroachment of it, the halfway point of it, there were multiple PDRAs at this region that made me think, or made me strongly believe, that we were going to push for higher prices from this area. And if you remember what I said on the previous review video that I had on the dollar, I said I didn't want to see us trade below these two candlesticks, these two that act as a bullish order block essentially. I didn't want to see us trade below them, because if we did, then that could mean or show some bearish move, some bearish indication to the downside. So going on the daily chart, I did mention that I would like to see us trade. This was a weekly order block. This line, from a weekly perspective, let me label it as I normally do. Go to the right. So we have this. This is the first PDRA that I'll be watching, because it also somewhat plays around the consequent encroachment of this tail. Let me quickly erase some of these. This was also a weekly sell side imbalance. I'm just going to leave this here for now because it may play a critical role later on. And okay, another thing I wanted to highlight was the market makers buy model. We had an initial consolidation, a rally down, a low pullback for more sells to be initiated, more displacement, and then consolidation at the bottom, usually not as long as the initial one, as Michael teaches. And now we are finally in the buy model. We are displacing, retracing into bullish PDRAs, displacing, retracing into bullish PDRAs, and of course the same retracement is here. And the target, of course, right now with the market maker buy model is the buy side, where the initial consolidation happened. And of course we can have targets beyond that, but this is my target for the week ahead. I'm not saying that we'll get there this week, I don't know if we will, but this is my target for the week ahead. Where would I be considering possible entries? I already mentioned the weekly order block from that massive bearish candlestick. And if we're gonna get a deeper retracement than that, then I'll be looking at this, but I don't think we'll come back into this range, because it's more subjective than objective, because I just feel like we've played around this range for a little longer than we should have. So we may not even come back into this weekly order block, but if we do, this should be the last line of defense in my mind. We may not get to the consequent encroachment, and we don't have any major news event this week. So that's the first entry. The next, of course, would be this, another PDRA. It's the weekly candlestick wick. Of course, the consequent encroachment of it. Let's quickly go to that so it can be clear. This long wick from the previous week, the previous trading week, we have this long massive wick here. I pulled the consequent encroachment of it, and it's about halfway mark of this candlestick on its own. So I feel like we may retrace back into it, and that is my first possible entry for longs, for buys. But of course, before we get there, I mean, looking at this order block, this was not an order block until we got this candlestick in my eyes, because we had to engulf it and take the previous highs, essentially creating a small change in market structure or market structure shift. So this was at some point an order block, right? I agree on that, and we already respected it. And on top of that, we bounced off of the consequent encroachment of this week. So there's a chance that we may not return to this level. We may not return to this level, and a high chance that we won't return to this level. And to be completely transparent, I will only be looking for, not only, of course, if we trade lower, then I'll see where else to reposition myself, but I'll be mainly or primarily paying attention to this candlestick's opening price. This is where I believe we may reject from to see higher prices. This is where I believe the low of the week on Tuesday or Wednesday would be formed, possibly even tomorrow being Monday, but this is where I'll be paying attention to the most, which is basically the daily bullish order block. I am aware that we have these PDRAs sitting here, but I would like to not only see price trade to them. I know we may reject from it and see lower prices on Monday, and then Tuesday creating the low of the week for higher prices. But I will not be looking for sells or shorting setups in this coming week. I'll only be looking for longing opportunities or buying opportunities on the Dixie the entire week. So I'm aware that there's such a PDRA that could push price lower, but I would like to see us trade through it and close above it. And the same of course applies to this sell side imbalance, this fair value gap from this candlestick's low to this candlestick's high, the space in between being a fair value gap in the form of a sell side imbalance. So right now we are still trading inside of it. I would like to see price trade not only above it, but I want to see price use it as support to push higher and essentially take out those main buy side liquidity. And I want to see price do it in a low resistant fashion. I don't want to see us consolidate as much as we did the past 2 weeks in this range. So this is my outlook for the dollar. Of course, everything I've mentioned here is completely opposite when looking at foreign currencies like euro and pound. So GBP USD and Euro USD, of course, I'm looking for selling opportunities. We swept the buy side during CPI, this place lower. Look for any pullback, any bearish PDRA that could be taken to short. I'll be taking that. Of course, my first target is there. The next sell side is over there, and we'll see beyond. We'll see after that where else we may trade to. But these are my targets on the pound. On euro, we are seemingly a little bit more stronger, so the sell side liquidity is still sitting a little more below than it is on the pound. So again, I don't want to see any PDRAs, any bearish PDRAs being respected. I want to see us trade through it and use them as resistance to push price lower. In this case, we have this CB as an inverse fair value gap. You may expect it to support higher prices. I want us to trade below it and essentially use it as a reclaimed sell side imbalance for lower prices, something like so. Yeah, and of course the same applies to the indices. I have my sell side target. I want us to trade through this other block. The moment we can trade and close on a weekly perspective below this other block, then my eyes are going to this fair value gap residing lower. But that's only when we close below this. So my bias for the week ahead is very simple, it's very straightforward, and I will of course cover it a little bit more. I have some stuff that I have been refining, like SMT diversions, like turtle soups, and a few other PDRAs and concepts that I essentially forgot about from ICT's teachings, and I think I'll have to cover that in my next videos because I don't want to make this one too long. I also mentioned that I will only be risking $5 now. I mean $500 as a whole. That would mean, from my calculation, that I'll be risking only $20 a day, or should I say per trade. So in a given day I should not lose anything more than $20, and if I do lose $20 in a day, I'll subtract 5, meaning the following day I should only permit myself to lose in 15, and the same happens as the days go by until I recover every cent that has been lost, no matter how long it takes. Another difference I'll be having on my description section, since I essentially am going to be performing a great reset, is no longer update day-to-day P&L updates. I'll just use the total amount either from this or from over there, the total until recovery. So right now we're sitting on minus $9,747. I need to recover this whole amount before we can talk about making profits. So I'll be updating based on this. And the other update I wanted to add is that I'll be trading a few other major currency pairs, maybe here and there trade exotics, but I will be trading a few other currency pairs, and I'll be using the same concepts, the same risk management, and of course I'll break down my reasons per video that I make. I just thought I should point those few things out before proceeding in the week ahead. I've already given my bias in this video along with what has happened in the previous week. So that's all for now. Take care, good luck, and good trading.